everybody, this is Rob of Archangel Inc., and it is my pleasure today to host for this interview Ava Fails, and I'll give Ava a chance to describe herself and what she's up to today, but the topic of the day is going to be author branding, and Ava has some experience and background in that, and wanted to have you on and have a conversation and share some information about that. So welcome, Ava.
Thanks, Rob. I'm glad to be here. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Cool. So for folks who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, anything about your background, how you ended up in the space that you are today.
Sure. I'm Ava. I piddle around online all the time as a virtual assistant for mostly authors and self-publishers. I actually left the real job world about 7 years ago, and I came home to do this after I published my first book in 2011. So.
Awesome. Have you always been interested in authorship and writing? Did you have a background in that before, or was that something that kind of emerged along a different path for you?
I did have a background and an interest in writing. I actually went to college for graphic design, but I ended up as a technical writer, and I really enjoyed that. And I also enjoyed the fact that I could create something in writing a little faster than I could with my artwork. So that's how I ended up there.
Yeah, that's awesome. So technical writing, what does that mean?
So it was like manuals, procedures, policies, that kind of stuff. I actually worked for a heavy equipment rental company. So it was like, big, like excavators and stuff. They rented that type of equipment out in Las Vegas, actually. Okay. So I documented policies and procedures for the service department.
All right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure it's really important, work to make sure everybody's kind of on the same page with all of that. And I imagine there's just a lot of experience in writing to different crowds as a result of that.
Yeah, it was kind of fun actually, because it was a lot of field work. You're out in the field documenting what people are doing, so it was kind of fun. Sometimes you would get to drive something, so
yeah,
it was kind of fun.
Yeah, no, super cool. So we've got a handful of questions that we drafted. So let's just jump right in.
Sure.
Tell us about author branding. What is it to have an author brand? Why is it important? What should I be thinking about if I'm an author and this is all sort of new to me? Right.
Well, I mean, basically, if you say Stephen King, that's an author brand. Everybody knows who he is and what he does. And when he comes out with a new book, he's got a fan base that's going to be looking for that title. So that's kind of how you want to approach things with your author brand. You want to have something that tells people who you are and kind of what you do, whether that's your name, whether you turn that into your name or a pen name or, or Archangel Inc., whatever it is.
Sure.
You want to have a memorable, pronounceable brand that people can recognize.
So would you say that the brand is pretty tied up with your body of work and a particular genre or style, or can it be more expansive than that?
It should be tied up with your genre and your style and the books that you produce, but at the same time, I think you can expand upon it if that's something that you want to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's true. Sometimes we get authors who are thinking about writing across multiple genres and, brainstorming, how they brand themselves. And one of the recommendations that I see from time to time is, brand it based on you and who you are, because you're kind of the umbrella, you're the overall envelope under which, all of these different interests that you might have crop up, rather than, Rob Archangel publisher versus Rob Archangel sports fan or Rob Archangel whatever. Right. It's the author, him or herself.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
Right. So when you're setting up an author brand, when you're thinking about this, what are some common missteps? What are some things that people maybe accidentally do wrong? They don't necessarily know what they're doing, or they're making a decision, but it's not necessarily the decision that's going to benefit them in the long run.
I think they approach it with the mindset that they're going to write it and the audience will come, rather than having the audience first and then writing it.
Right.
And I think that's that's something that in the industry has flip-flopped in the last maybe 8 years or so, whereas you could pop onto Amazon, just publish what you wanted to write, and people would buy it because ebooks were kind of new and that kind of thing. But more recent years, I would say probably since about 2016 or 2017, you almost have to have that audience first, or you have to pay to play. So that's where the brand comes in as being important, because you want that brand to be memorable. And if you're running an ad, you don't want to be Joe Schmo. You want to be something that people are going to recognize. I have a client, for example, he had a book in real estate because he was a real estate agent out in California. And he was the member of a couple of real estate agent Facebook groups that had, multiple thousands of people in there. And so when he published his first real estate book, he posted to these Facebook groups where he was active. And I mean, he hit #1 bestseller within like 2 weeks with like hardly any effort at all, because he had that audience first.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that point. The early days of Amazon, I've been involved 6-7 years or so.
Right.
There was just that novelty, being able to have this cool little Kindle device, and you can browse around on it. You can click a button, and you'd have a book, in in your device in 20 seconds or however long it took to download. But now there's so many books out there. There are, literally millions of books, and you're competing against so many authors.
Yeah.
And having that novelty alone is not enough to generate sales,
Exactly.
And all of these categories, all of these different browse paths that people have, in many cases, they're already chock full of good stuff, good material. And so you really want to stand out. That idea of building your brand first, or building your audience first, and kind of knowing what your audience might be interested in and kind of tailoring your content around it, reminds me of something. I'm pretty sure I got it from Tom Corson Knowles, one of his books. He was another early self-publishing pioneer. He's now got his own publishing company, but he said, oftentimes artists will think, well, I don't want to be a sellout. I don't want to just do something that people are going to buy. And he said, as an artist, as a creative type, you can think of those people as sellouts, because they're selling out their first print run, because they're actually keeping in mind what their audience is looking for and trying to provide value, rather than strong arming the audience into whatever's in your head and in your heart. You might have a great story, a great vision, but you're also, the other side of the equation is you're asking for the reading audience and the buying audience to make a buying decision on your behalf. So there's got to be some reciprocity there. You've got to be thinking about what their desires are as well. And and building that brand and that set of expectations around it, and modulating it based on what people say, I think is a really important part of the whole process, and can kind of get you off to the right foot, rather than you have this book and maybe you invest time, money, energy, you have it out there, and you're like, why isn't anybody interested? It's like, well, maybe if you were thinking about it as you started off, what people were interested first, and then trying to answer that question and provide that value, it could have made that whole process a lot smoother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely. Cool. So now we've all heard of pie in the sky promises from authors who suddenly, they start making 4, 5, even 6-figure, income levels from self-publishing. We hear that. We especially heard that some years ago. Maybe not as much anymore. People are perhaps a little bit more skeptical. But in any event, it's sometimes hard to know what is realistic. As you're starting out as an author, can you realistically hope to make $100,000 a year, $1 million a year, something like that? What in your experience are some reasonable benchmarks and goals for an author getting started, and assuming they're going about it in the right ways and not doing anything sort of funny or black hat or anything?
Right. Well, first off, it's just like we've been talking about here, is to to build that audience. And really, the best way that I've seen to do that is to be a part of that audience yourself. So to make sure that it's something that you're interested in, you're passionate about. And I'm not necessarily saying, oh, you need to focus on your passions and this kind of thing, because sometimes that can, get you into trouble with an emotional attachment, things like that. But I think within the realm of writing books and being an author, you should be interested in what the stuff that you're producing, and a part of that community, wherever that is, whether it's online or offline or both.
Right.
I think that is a good goal to start off with, because then you have a ready-made audience to say, hey, by the way, since we're talking about this topic, I wrote this and I think it might help you out.
Right. Yeah, it's so helpful, especially, on our end when we're helping clients and we're working with clients to know the answer to questions like, what are other books in your genre? What are some of the other books in your genre? What are they talking about?
Yeah.
How are they presenting themselves? What are the high performers doing effectively that you can incorporate, and at the same time maybe fill in the gaps, provide your own unique take on it, consolidate information in a different way, address questions that maybe are currently unanswered in that marketplace of ideas. So yeah, it's so helpful as you're starting out as an author to just have a sense of, where do I stand? What's the lay of the land? Who am I going to be writing to? What are those people reading about, thinking about doing? And ideally, as you said, often it's if you're a part of that audience, then you should know. You should know. Maybe you're writing about health and fitness, and you have a good sense of who the top health and fitness authors are, and what they're talking about, and so forth. So having that is just really, really helpful. One other tip that this just reminded me of, and is I've seen some folks recommend literally scouring the table of contents. You don't have to buy anything. You can go on Amazon, look through the table of contents, anything that's public, and see what are the headers. What are people discussing, and then also maybe again, where are the gaps? Where are things that maybe you have questions about, or other people in your various social media groups, or other online outlets talking about and saying, boy, I have this issue, I have this problem, I have this challenge. How are you folks dealing with it? And that could be a really fruitful area for exploration, and providing that value on your own when it's time to create your own next project.
Yeah, and when you're already a member of that community, you're going to get some of that information as well. You're going to see what people are talking about, where other books have fallen short, and what they're talking. You're going to be there. You're going to know what they're talking about. So I would say be a member of the community that you're writing for.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. What and this is not planned question, but what sort of are there some outlets or some platforms that are better for establishing those communities, or does it vary? Is it kind of up to the author to determine? Do you recommend, for example, Facebook groups, or Twitter communities, or different forums, or anything like that, or does it kind of expand and include all of those potentially?
Well, Facebook groups can be extremely powerful. There can be a lot of people there. It's the third largest audience on the internet after Google and YouTube. So, I mean, you're looking at a place where a lot of people are. So that in and of itself makes Facebook feasible, but it's not the only place. Like, I have some clients that are like, I'm not on Facebook, I don't like it, I don't care about it, I don't, whatever. And so no, you're not tied to that one platform. There's so many options. I mean, there's ones that are geared just for authors, like Goodreads. There's Twitter, which is really easy to build an audience on, in my experience. There's Reddit, there's communities, there's forums. So there's lots, but Reddit is just a gold mine of information. I don't like to post there. I always get flamed when I post there. But I love to read there. Sure. I read and comment, but I don't make Reddit posts anymore because I always get flamed. I must just be a complete moron about whatever I'm saying, or they always think like I'm trying to promote myself or something. So
Yeah, I remember years ago I posted on the NBA page, and there's just in my mind it was a question that I thought about, who's your all-time starting five, and I'm sure like a million people have done that, and I lots of downvotes is like nobody cares, man. Who cares who your favorite five players are? It's like, okay, I got it. I learned my lesson. I won't do that anymore. Um, cool. All right. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about was the new project that you have going on, and that is Author Brand Kits. Or Author Brand Kit. Sorry. Tell us a little bit about it. Why did you develop it? What's included, and why might this be a good fit for some authors out there?
Sure. So when somebody creates a course for self-publishing or they offer a service, most of the time they're like, yes, you need to have a website, you need to have you need to be on social media, you need to build your email list. Mm-hmm. And there's a learning curve to doing all three of those, a pretty steep one. Mm-hmm. And I know how to do it. And I know I have a little bit of experience, so I know some decent platforms to use. Mm-hmm. I know how to do it fairly, inexpensively. So I'm filling that gap.
Sure. So if I'm an author, I'm starting out, I say, Ava, I want an author brand kit. Walk me through the process. Tell me what I can expect to have at the end of it, and what my role is in the creation process.
Gotcha. So the first thing that we start with is your custom domain name, and from that we create a custom email account. So, for example, rob@archangel.inc. Mm-hmm. So that's what we start. We use that to build everything else. So once we have the email established, you get a year of hosting with SiteGround, which I really love. The hosting is super fast, daily backups, free SSL certificates, whereas so you don't get the security warnings on your website, you get the HTTPS protocol. Mm-hmm. So that's included for free. So you get set up with a WordPress website. Mm-hmm. Usually 4 to 5 pages. It depends on if you want a blog or not. I mean, WordPress is always going to include a blog, but you don't have to use it. You can exclude it from your navigation and not have it. So then you get the website with your home page, your about page, your books, showcases your books, and your contact page. And then once we have your website done, then we move on and we create a MailerLite account for you, because you have to have the website done. MailerLite won't approve the account if you don't have an established website that's completed.
Okay. Yep.
So then we build that. That's your email marketing. So from that, we take your form, we install it on your website so you can build your email list. Mm-hmm. Include that in the back of your books, whatever it is that you want to do to build your list. And then we start securing your brand across the web, so Joe Schmo can't ease into Twitter as you and post a bunch of crap and mess up your reputation. We create some graphics for social media. So the 2 social media accounts that we like to work with, if authors don't already have those established, are Facebook and Twitter, because those are pretty much the universal. Everybody should have it. And then we do a Facebook cover, Twitter header, and then we move on to Instagram, Reddit, Pinterest. I think there's like 14 or 15 assets included in there. A Google, YouTube, we do a YouTube channel, all that stuff. And if you need graphics for that, we'll whip together something real quick that matches your Facebook and Twitter header or whatever, matches your website. And then you end up with a spreadsheet with all your login information. We don't hold anything hostage. Everything we create for you, you receive. And it just kind of sets you up with a platform that you can keep concise, or you can expand later if you choose to. The assets are already there
Right.
and ready to go at your pace.
Got it. Yeah, I love that aspect of it. I still don't have, some of those like Pinterest account. It'd probably be helpful to have one set up for Archangel Link at some point, and just having all of those in place so that you almost like you're just bookmarking them. Whether you end up being active on them currently, at least you retain control of them, and you can always create just a sort of header like, hey, visit my webpage at myauthorbrand.com, or whatever it is. And it's just really helpful to have that all consolidated, because you're right. We work with clients. Oftentimes the clients are first timers. They're not necessarily familiar with everything that's involved in building an author platform. And so saying, hey, just go ahead and set up, post across all of your social media, put this on your website, and then start collecting email signatures. It's like, wait, what? How do I do any of that? Sometimes you don't even know the first place to start asking good questions, so you can make those plans. And so one of the things that I really appreciated when you told me about this project, and I started to learn it a little bit more, is that it is it seems like there's some collaboration, but it's largely done for you, so that even if you don't have any web design experience, even if you don't know the first thing about setting up a mailing list and any like an email automation, or just an email capture or anything like that, you can say, hey, Ava, help me. I'm interested in doing all this. I want to have this in place, even if I don't have the bandwidth to do all of this, one, on my own, or two, once it's created, all right now, at least it's there, and I can start dabbling, as time goes on. So I mean, it's just when Archangel Link was founded, I was initially working with my company co-founder, and he had just his own website, and we started producing Kindle books and paperback books and audiobooks of his material. And it was sort of this idea of, wow, this is useful. We knew other people in the health and fitness space that might be interested in that kind of thing as well. And so we started offering it, because we just sort of organically recognized that there was a need for a suite of services like what we had stumbled onto for ourselves. And so in a similar way, I imagine working as a VA, working with authors and helping set up some of these various things on an a la carte basis, or in a discrete way. It's like, wait, what if we just package it, put it together, and say, here's what we can offer, and responding to that need, and that need being, hey, not everybody knows what the heck is involved, and how to even begin this process. So I really like that. I really appreciate that, and I think it's a fun and valuable service.
Thanks. Yeah, it's important to me not to come in with something where I'm reinventing the wheel. I mean, there's tons of courses out there. There's tons of publishers and things, and I really wanted to find a way to enhance what they were already doing rather than try to redo it myself. And I just kind of stumbled upon, I don't know where it came. I just kind of, all of a sudden I was like, so I looked up the domain, and it was available, and I kind of Googled around to see if there was other services like there's a few out there, but there's not really anything that stood out. And I'm like, let's go ahead and see if we can do something here, because I was coming across the same problems all the time. People are like, I have a WordPress website, but I don't know how to work it. I hyperventilate every time I open it. It's freaking me out. So I really wanted to fill that gap, offer people something. Here it is, 4 weeks, we built it, it's yours, and then support them through the process of learning how to use it. So
I love it. And you mentioned 4 weeks. So is that the typical time frame from start to finish for the folks working with you?
Yeah. So we take 4 weeks to build out the author brand kit. They get, when they sign up, the first thing they get is what I call an onboarding package. And that has a couple of forms in it that I need them to fill out, just so I have the information that I need to begin working on their stuff.
Yep.
And then one of the things they receive in that package is a timeline that tells them what we're doing when. And so the first week is when we kind of, like I said, was when we do the domain, the email, the website. And then we just kind of go on from there until the last thing we do is securing their brand. So we just kind of step one, step two. We've got it broken up into like we give a week for everything.
Right.
And we do that because, you know, if you just jump online, you start throwing stuff out in like 3 hours, you're done. Google is going, what are you doing? You spamming, you know.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a really great a bit of feedback. You know, if you do try and do too much at once, it's almost you know, you not exactly like an account lockout, but you know, something like that. You're attempting to log on too many times with the incorrect password or something. You know, it's like you have to wait till tomorrow. You're in timeout.
What are you doing?
And that's it's such a valuable process. Now, what sort of on the onboarding package, is it fairly hands off? Is there a lot of you know, if the client has some ideas about, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking, or I want to do this but not that, you know, how does that work, or does it vary from client to client?
So there's one form in there, and it asks them all the relevant questions, starting with what do you want your brand to be, and just in case that's taken, what are a couple other things you might want it to be if that's the case.
Right.
And you know, then I just ask them questions about, like, you know, do you have colors that you prefer? I mean, I don't want to make somebody a red website when their favorite color is green.
Right.
You know, things like that. And, you know, I'll take some input. And if, you know, what I create, they're like, well, I don't really like that picture. Can you change it? Sure, no problem. You know, I'll take some feedback on things. That's not an issue. But the package is pretty much just, it's a standard thing. You get, you know, this email address, this hosting, this 4 or 5 page website, these 15 things, and that's what you get.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. And that's sort of what we've settled on as well. There's you know, with our process, there's opportunity for feedback and discussion and workshopping things, but there's also a sense in which, you know, we try and lead the process. We've done this before. We've been down this path, and we want to help you make the best decisions that we can. So, you know, we ask for your trust and, you know, and confidence that we're not going to mislead you or lead you down the wrong route.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to create something somebody doesn't like or they don't feel proud to use.
Right. Yep. No, that's totally understood for sure. Cool. All right. So how can folks get in touch with you? Is there anything else that you want to share as we're, you know, kind of wrapping up here? You know, if they're interested in getting an author brand kit, you know, how can they get a hold of you for that, or anything else that you offer?
Authorbrandkits.com. All my links and information's there. If you don't see your question already answered, there's a contact form and I will email you right back. Other than that, my VA stuff is over at heyyoava.com, and that's where I kind of run that side of things. So
cool.
That's where I am.
Perfect. And I'll get any of those relevant links and include them in the description down below once this video is posted, along with anything else, any other handle, you know, social media handles, anywhere, any other opportunity that people might have to reach out to you. But I really appreciate it, Ava. It's good
Same
chatting.
Here.
And folks out there, if you're interested in learning more, definitely get a hold of Ava or reach out in the comments below. Let me know any thoughts, any comments, any questions that you have about author branding. And we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great rest of the day, everyone.